Trying to find the reasons you won't find a.
Hi beautifuls, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. So today we are doing a video on 3D nail art. So this is everything you need to know about 3D nail art. So first I'm starting off with showing you a little bit of my first 3D nail art things that I made, and just to give you a little bit of courage. It takes time, practice makes perfect. And as long as you have the tools that you need and the time to constantly try until you get it right, you can create some really cool and pretty things. So with that being said, yeah, these are all of my trials and tribulations. Some look much better than others. Like, look at that blue rose right there compared to this white one that I show you. Like, night and day. I also recommend just following me on Instagram, because on my Instagram, I do a lot more videos on, like, posted on my story and stuff of me creating things out of 3D molding clay, because posting something on your Instagram story is a lot easier than trying to format a whole video for either TikTok or YouTube. So now we're going to get into the portion of the video where we talk about the tools and the materials that I use. So I have a ton of 3D clays. Not as much as I would like. I do hope to buy some more. I even found a new brand of 3D molding clays that I want to give a try. That's literally me. I'm like down to try out anything. If it works for me, it works. If it doesn't, oh well, I won't buy it again, but I will figure out how to use the product to get it to work. So these are just some of the colors that I have. I have the full collection of the Sissi Clays. I have the full collection of the Sissi Clays, both the pastel and the original color. I have this milky white from Yogo. I also have some iridescent clays that I got off of Temu, and then I have this big giant jar of clear clay from Amazon. And then I also have the fantasy white clay from Ball Pit Shop. So yeah, I have so many. In fact, like, one of my drawers, like 95% of it is just filled with molding clay. How I like to categorize molding clay, much like how someone would categorize a hard gel or a builder gel, from low viscosity to a high viscosity gel. That's kind of the same way that I categorize 3D molding gels, but instead of using viscosity, I categorize it from wetness to dry. So there's something that is really wet and there's something that is really dry. So the fantasy clay from Ball Pit Shop, I categorize that more towards the drier side. It is a very dry clay. If you look at it, it doesn't even have a sheen to it. And I've noticed that it also has a bit of glitter in it. So I don't know if that is contributing to the dryness of the clay, but it does have a bit of like a glittery sheen. And I notice when I go and add things on top of it, you can start to pick out the glitter. So next I have the Sissi Clay. It is the original color. I don't know what's the actual name of it, but I'm just gonna say original, as well as this blue from Sissi Clay, which is also original color. Now these sit in the middle of the really wet to really dry category, but one is closer to the wetness side than the other. So the blue from Sissi Clay. Now Sissi Clay is kind of a weird clay. So even though it is wet, it has that high gloss sheen. I've noticed that when it sits in its container, it kind of self levels and it relaxes into the product. While the Sissi Clay, it has a sheen to it. However, the product does not relax into each other. Like, you can still see the indents that I made from taking product and adding product back in. While if I was to do that with the Sissi Clay, it will completely relax and almost damn near mix back into the product. So in that category, it will go Sissi Clay, the crisp brown clay, and then Ball Pit Shop closer to the dryness. And then of course you have your clear, which is closer to the wetness side, and you have jelly clays, which are closer to the wetness side, because jelly clays function in the same way that the Sissi Clay is functioning, except it's a translucent color. Or should I say it functions in the same way that the clear functions. So this right here is a iridescent clay from Temu. I had a really hard time opening it, so I put up this video here so you guys can see the color. So next we're going to get into the actual tools that I use when molding my clays. So of course I have my standard silicone tools. Now I got these silicone tools all from Michael's. And again, I got it I got it from Michael's, not even knowing that later on it was going to become a trend to where people were like actually using silicone tools. I was just looking for tools that would help me with using the clay. When I was in Michael's, I found it and I purchased it, and they still work to this day. Now, the tools that I'm holding here are actually a new set of tools that I got from AliExpress. So these are actual, I think they call them sculpting pottery tools. So they're tools that you legitimately, like artists, legitimately uses when doing pottery, when sculpting with clay and all this stuff. And they have become a great addition to my process of molding clays. I absolutely love them. They're double-ended, and you can do all sorts of things with them. Create indents. You can cut the clay with it too. I've done that multiple times. This tool here is another tool used in actual pottery and actual clay making. And I don't use it in the general sense that it was used for. I think it's like a flower tool. A lot of people mold like porcelain flowers on it. I use it to create holes, like little holes in the clays, as well as it also helps with making indents, slit, cutting things, all that lovely stuff. Now, the tried and true, my sculpting game elevated when I got this brush. This is the CrisaniaNeri sculptor brush, I think. I believe is a vegan nylon brush. And she has been used, abused, battered, beaten. She is loved in this household. And then of course I have another silicone tool. Now this is a fatter silicone tool. I think it came in a package from when I purchased something off of Amazon. I don't know, I could be wrong. And of course, tweezers. You'll be surprised. Tweezers are your best friend. So those are all the tools that I use. Further on in the video, I add some more tools. So now the surfaces that I build clay on. So sometimes I really like just a flat surface. Yes, that's not necessarily smart when you're trying to add things onto nails, but since I don't really add a lot of 3D characters and things like that on my nails, I mainly just do it for the art's sake. I'm okay with it being flat. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a nail form and I'll add that nail form to a flat surface, and boom, you have a non-stick surface that you can easily mold and sculpt things on. If I do want a charm to have that curved surface, what I like to do is I like to make non-stick surfaces. So one of the first ways that I make it is with saran wrap. So I take a pilly base, so a air dry peel off base. I got this one from a Daiso in South Korea. I put one layer of that on a tip and I let it dry. And then after I let it semi-dry a little bit, I then put the saran wrap on top of it. Another way that I make a non-stick surface is with foil. This one's pretty much the easiest way. Just sometimes the foil can be a bit of a headache, but one thing I've noticed is that once I create one, I don't end up creating another one until yeah, until I'm like, okay, yeah, I need a new one. But this one's pretty much easy. You take a tip that you like, preferably something that is a little bit more sturdy, and it doesn't like, it's not a loose tip. Like a soft gel tip, I would not recommend. You really want like a hard body tip, because something that will truly hold its form. And you wrap the foil around it, and then you place that on your stand, and boom, you got a curved surface that you can easily scope things on. And I really only use that for small little knickknacks and charms, or if I want something to fit on the natural nail. And then of course, going back to the one that I add the pill base on, but it's pretty simple. After I add the pilly base, I let it dry, and then I stretch the saran wrap over it. Once I like how it is, I rip it off, and the excess I just wrap around the tip. And there's a couple reasons to why I do that. By adding that pilly base, for some reason the saran wrap really likes it, so it sticks quite well to it, but I can also still easily remove it because it is a peel off base. And yeah, it's just easier. The saran wrap one is a lot thinner of a surface, and also it's still clear, so I don't have to worry too much about it not curing underneath. And then the foil one is good because, especially if you want to make just like small little add-on trinkets, so like say I want to make a cloud or a little bow, using the foil is quite easy. It doesn't take long to wrap a tip in foil. So now we're going to get into the creative spot. So in all of my videos, I like to demonstrate just a little brief example of me using my tools and the products that I like to use to create something. Another additional tool that I have that you don't necessarily need, you can just wear a regular glove, but I always recommend you use protection when molding with gel clay because, of course, contact dermatitis. One thing I do want to point out is that contact dermatitis is not something that happens immediately. Contact dermatitis, especially when it comes to nail products, is due to overexposure. So you constantly using products incorrectly and having it all over your skin and over your nails, and just constantly playing and using gel products, whether it's HEMA-free or not HEMA-free, any chemical on your skin, any foreign chemical on your skin can cause contact dermatitis due to overexposure. So just keep that in mind. So I put on, they're called finger condoms, and I put them on, and I like them because then I don't have to put on a whole glove, which I really hate having to use an entire glove for something so simple like this. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. So when I am making 3D characters, I'm going to go ahead and post up the character that I am trying to recreate. When I am making 3D characters, I notice that it's best to build up, especially if you want to create like character likeness, like you want the gentle indent of the face that the character has, or for like the nose, the eyes, the mouth. You want to kind of build up, and then it also helps when it's curing. It'll make sure that that first layer is completely cured before you go ahead and add on a same size layer. So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. I took out a chunk of my clay. I cut it in half. That first half, I placed it on my, what am I gonna call this? On my form. And then now I'm flattening it out completely as flat as I want, getting the size and the shape of my character's head. And yeah, I'm like really pressing down. I'm just really trying to focus on getting the ideal shape. I hate the idea of wasting products. Like I truly do. And sometimes I feel like when we are creating these big bulbous balls to then mold and flip and mix and shape into things, that's unnecessary. You really don't need that much clay, and then you also run into the issue of it not curing all the way, which you don't want because that's bad. So I am just molding it and getting it to the shape that I like. Just giving a sneak peek of the character that I am creating. A little lotus. I think it's a girl, but I didn't do the body because we would have been here for hours if I would have tried to do the body. So before I added this second ball, I did cure it in the lamp, even though I didn't show it. So now I added that second ball, and I'm pretty much doing the same thing. Just molding it and shaping it into the flat surface. The reason to why this is a good method to build up your character head, because say like you want your character to have hair in the background, instead of me doing that peach in the back, I would probably do like the color of her hair. So say like her hair was supposed to be orange, I would do that layer of orange in the back, and then that can act as her hair, and I'll go in and then add the tan or the brown bulbous clay on top. So it's just like different methods and modes that you can do with it, and it just helps, and it makes things look a lot cleaner. It makes things look a lot neater, and you're not overwhelmed because you're building up in layers. That's one thing about building up in layers. It teaches you and it helps you not to be overwhelmed. So next thing I'm doing is I'm starting to mark out where the indents of her eyes are going to be, because she is a sleeping queen, or he is a sleeping king. So the character's eyes have a very slight indent, and that's almost perfect because especially with like childlike faces, which this character is a childlike face, where their eye indent is kind of helps separate the forehead and the cheeks, which most of the time for cutesy kid characters, the cheeks and the forehead are literally the same size. Like the cheeks of the character are just as plump as the forehead of the child. And also childlike characters' facial features sit pretty low on the face plane. I took my tool and I mapped out a vertical line and a horizontal line, and then I found out exactly where I wanted to place one eyelid indent at, and then I went in and I placed the other. And then I just go in and I just constantly work it until it's how I like it. This tool that I'm using here is a daisy brush. That's the name of it. It's called Daisy. If you type on Temu, AliExpress, Amazon, you type in Daisy nail art brush or nail art brush Daisy. This thin, I wouldn't even say thin. It's like an oval. No, not even an oval. What is it, a cylinder? I'm just naming shapes. It's a daisy brush because I think it was made for nail artists to easily create daisy flowers. So just like art brushes have a little bit of lore to why they were created for artists, or why an artist created this certain nail art brush. Nail art brushes are the same way, like the angled flat brush, or your checkerboard brush, not even called checkerboard brush, what is it called? Square brush, the round brush, they all were made for certain reasons for nail techs to easily create something. And it's the same way with the daisy brush. It was made so that people can create the petals of a daisy a lot easier. So after I was done with that and I liked the way the indents were, I froze it, so I cured it. And then I added the tiniest little dot, the tiniest little dot to create the cutest freaking nose, you guys. I was so happy when this worked out. Most of the time I draw noses on, because if we're being honest, especially when you're doing like small face cutesy characters, ain't nobody got time to sit here and try to perfect the nose. But you give something a try and it actually works, that'd be the cutest thing in the whole wide world. So I took the tiniest little bit of clay, plopped it on the little center. And again, using that daisy brush, because it's so small and it's quite dense, and also it is a synthetic art brush, it holds, how to put this, synthetic nail art brushes are a bit stiff. It's a lot stiffer than a Calency brush, or even like the nylon brush that I got from CrisaniaNeri. Like synthetic brushes, especially in nail art, because they're only using so many bristles, it's quite stiff, and that's perfect for something like gel and a molding clay. Love it, I love it, I love it. Yeah, Calency brushes does not work for gel. No matter how much we flip, reverse, or try to push it, it just doesn't work. And low key, I don't know if it's me, but I also feel like the nylon brush that I got from CrisaniaNeri quite doesn't work either. Because my nylon brush, she falling apart. Like the bristles are afraid. I even tried dipping it in hot water, but it just made it worse. So I had to cut a couple bristles off, which I don't know if it's me or is it the fact that it is a nylon brush. I think I kind of prefer synthetic brushes when dealing with gel. For some reason, gel just cooperates better with the synthetic brush. It's also easier to clean with the synthetic brush. But I digress. The next thing that we're moving on to are the little ears. When I think the ears are a perfect time to understand proportions when it comes to molding clay. And also just sculpting something with clay is a perfect way to learn proportions. That's why I've been kind of leaning more into building facial characters, facial features with clay. So that, because if I'm able to see how it is sculpted wise, like in a 3D format, when it comes to me having to draw it 2D, it makes it a lot easier, because then you know, like, okay, well, the forehead's going to be this big, and then because of that, and it's a child, the eyes are going to sit a little bit lower on the face. And if I want the character to be cuter, I'll make it a lot more softer. If I want the character to be more angry, mad, sad, sleepy, it's just easy to see the facial features and how you want the character structured when you're actually seeing it in a 3D format rather than seeing it in a 2D. So with that, the ears are perfect when understanding proportions, because when you take a ball, sometimes you pick up so much, and I am so bad at that. I always end up grabbing way too much, and then I put it next to the face, and I'm like, oh, this ear is going to be huge. The ear is going to be about near, the ear is going to be about near the same size as the head. So just taking your time, removing things, and not getting overwhelmed, you're going to have it in no time. So after I was done with the ears, I'm practically finished with the face. I'm practically finished with the base of the face. I decided to go ahead and start with the blush, and the blush of the face. So 2 things that I like to use when painting or adding details to my characters are watercolor paint and my soft pastel chalks. The reason to why I like using those is, I don't know, I just kind of like the look of it. Yeah, it's just another thing. It's like, I find myself not really watching too many nail artists and picking up techniques of nail artists. I find myself really watching like artists, like painters or sculptors, and picking up on their techniques and then bringing that technique to my world of nail art. And with that, I find some cool, fun things, and you realize, okay, things can work in the same way. So one of the things that I've been watching is a lot of air dry clay sculpting and also polymer clay sculpting. And whenever they are adding features and tones and skin tones onto their characters, they use very like washed out thin colors, because you're able to build up layers and really get that likeness that people have. And then they also use the chalk, soft pastel chalks, to brush on highlights and shadows and things like that. So I've been starting to use those same techniques in my own nail art, and I've been loving the what's the word I'm looking for? I've been loving the outcome of it. So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. Adding the little blush, because a blushing princess, a blushing prince is always so freaking cute. Give me 500 of them stat. So yeah, it's just a bit of a process. I don't really know why I did this first. I think because I liked the way the face was looking. I just wanted to go ahead and add the blush because I knew it was going to be cute. So I was like, let's add it because I know you're going to be cute. And and he is cute. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, so I'm just going to keep saying he is cute. And so now I wanted to show you guys my soft pastels. I've had these for a good 4 months, and because again I'm using them on nails, so they practically look brand new. They practically look like I hadn't even touched them. And that's because you really only need so much. I did go in with a matte top coat. It is a drawing matte top coat from the brand Motive. Yeah, amazing. Color pencils cling onto that really well. My soft pastels cling onto that really well. And watercolor clings onto it really well because it is a matte top coat that was created for foreign art, nail art things. So after I was done with that, I went ahead and I sealed in the blush because I was kind of afraid that when I was going in to do the hair that I was gonna mess it up or accidentally wipe it off, because again I use alcohol to sculpt and mold my things. So that was the blush pretty done. I feel like it was kind of self-explanatory. The most important part were the things that I was using. I felt like using a gel-based product, it just would have took too long to blend it out. By using these foreign nail art products, it just made it easier, less stress. And that's the biggest thing. Anything that's going to add less stress onto you is the way to go. So now we're getting into the lotus hair. Now I know you may look at that and go, Desiree, girl, how am I supposed to sculpt this? It's always best to work in layers. You're going to see me do the same thing. I took out a block of white, cut it in half, and with that first half, I'm laying down that first layer. What I'm trying to do is just get the shape. Just starting to have a shape. And then with flowers, once you have that base, all you're going to do is just add petals to connect to that base. So that's what I'm doing. So it is a lotus, and with a lotus, especially when it's almost start to bloom, so it hasn't fully bloomed, it's about at that middle blooming spot. It has a fat heart in the middle, just like a rose. A rose has the thickest part, which is the heart of the rose. That is kind of what I'm trying to create, the heart of the lotus. So that bulbous part of the lotus, if that makes any sense. And because, again, not to overwhelm myself, and just give myself time to work on the layers, work on the shape, how I want it to look, where I want it to stop, how far I want it to go up. Working in layers just makes it a lot comfortable for you to get the look. So as you can see in the picture of our little lotus king, because after I finished his hair, he looked definitely more like a boy. I'm just really creating that cone. And then once I have the cone the way I like it, I then added the second piece of clay. And I did that to create the depth that I need to make it actually kind of look like a hair. So the same thing that I did with the face, that first layer to get the shape and the size that I like. And then the second layer is gonna add the shape that's gonna give it the bulbous look. And then once I was done and shaping that to the way that I like it, I then smoothed it out with my nail art brush. And because the ball pit shop clay is a bit more of a stiffer clay, which I love it for. I love the fact that it's a stiff clay. Because it is more of a stiff clay, it doesn't crumble on you as much. I've noticed the CrisaniaNeri white, when I'm trying to like really smooth it out, get that nice smooth surface, it kind of crumbles on me and don't quite like that. However, it doesn't happen often. It's only when I'm really trying to smooth that bad boy out. So that's one thing that I like about the ball pit shop clay, is that you're able to get it like a really smooth, soft surface, which makes it perfect when like creating strands of hair and things like that. So after I was done smoothing that bad boy out, I went in with my little pointy tool to kind of create the petal shape in the heart. So I just really, instead of me just adding the cone and then placing a ton of flowers over it, I took the tool to create an indent to make it seem like it's two flowers rather than just a dome in the back of the head. And then I just used my silicone tool to just further accentuate that petal look. And so even though it is technically a block of clay, by adding that little indent at the top, it creates this really cutesy flower petal thing. Yeah. I promise you guys, I know what I'm talking about. So after I was done with that, I just went ahead and just continued to smooth things out. Again, grabbing my daisy brush just to really get into the crease and just further smooth things out, just to make sure that I like the way it look. And so when I have to put on the extra petals to really give it that lotus-like look, I still have space and things like that. Grabbing my soft pastel chalks, I went in with this beautiful peach, and I'm going to use that just to color the tips of the clay. I do want to mention that I cured the clay before adding the chalk, and I do that with all of the petals. I cure it first, and then I go in and dust on that chalk with this brush. And then I just went ahead and went in and softened the edges of it with some alcohol and a cleanup brush. And that is the top of our little precious boy's head. So I went ahead and I grabbed this tool. So this is a silicone stamping tool with a a glove wrapped around it. So I took a glove and I wrapped it around the silicone tool, and I used that to sculpt my petals on. There's a rhyme and there's a reason. The reason is because it has, silicone stamping tool has that plush, like that, what is it, that springy boardness to it, so that when I'm pressing into the silicone, when I'm flattening it out, you see, like, it just helps with it. And instead of me taking it and having to put on gloves and then rolling it out on my hand with alcohol and doing all this stuff, I created this to do it on that because it just makes it a lot easier. And I have a little tool that I can hold in my hand and twist and turn and manipulate any way that I want to get my flower petals. And yeah, I love it. It's literally how I make all of my petals on. I absolutely love it. Wouldn't change it for the world. In fact, I have in a cart of mine more nail stamping things to make even bigger ones. Yeah. I don't know what made me think of this. I don't even know how I thought of this, but it's perfect. And then once I like it, I just pick up some alcohol and I pick up the petal. And that's all to it. It just makes it a lot easier. And because it has the glove on there, it doesn't stick. And again, it's so easy to make. I just took a silicone stamping, what do you call it? Silicone stamping stamper. I took the little silicone part out because the silicone part is always detachable, at least for most of them, or at least the cheap ones. Always detachable from the base. And wrapped it around a glove and then just stuffed the whole thing in there. And literally the whole glove is stuffed in there because the whole glove is stuffed in there, I don't have to worry about it like sinking all the way through the bottom when I apply pressure to thin out the petal. And after I like the shape that I created of the petal, I went ahead and I added it to his hair, really pushing the base of that petal towards the base of the bud that I made, the flower bud that I made. And then after the base is completely connected, then I would kind of flip back the tip, like I'm doing right here, flipping back the tip just ever so slightly to kind of like freeform it from the bud. And after it's free-formed from the bud, I just take the end and take the tip of the flower petal and curve it in towards the bud. Because that's kind of what flower petals do, is the base of the petal is connected to, like, directly connected to the bud of the flower. And then all it is like a nice simple curvature, and the tip connects back to the tip of the bulb, the bud. And that's kind of what I'm trying to emulate and recreate with each of the petals that I am creating. And then it's the same thing to what as you get further from the bud of the flower, that's when the flower starts to open up. And then you can still have the base connected to the bud as a whole, but the flowers are more relaxed and laid out, and you can see the petals more. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I've been talking for 38 minutes. But I'm pretty much just gonna quiet down because everything that I do here from like here on out is just repetitive. Same thing. Press out the petal to the shape that I like, add it to the bud, making sure the base is well connected, and then flaunt and making it look pretty the tip of the petal, and then curing it, and then going in with my chalk and coloring the tip of the petal. So when things change or I feel like I need to butt in, I will. Wanna be the one you wanted more. Wanna be the So the reason why I'm butting in right here is because so after I added a couple of petals and I liked the way it looked, I needed to go in and add more of a base so that my free-forming petals on the side of his head has something to connect to. And that's pretty much what I'm doing here. That's why I'm adding these big globs of clay to the sides, and it's just gonna, it kind of gives the clay something to anchor to and something to hold on to while you are creating these beautiful relaxed petals. And that's just pretty much it. That's the thing when making flowers with 3D molding clay. You need something for the petals to anchor to. If you don't have anything for the petals to anchor to, then you run into the issue of the petals being way too brittle, snapping off very easily. So, in all of my flower creating things that I do on Instagram, my Instagram stories, you always see me create a bud, and then every time that I am adding on to the flowers, I'm really making sure the base of that petal is anchored to the base of the bud. And then, yeah, after I added the base, or I gave it something to anchor itself onto, I went in with a smaller piece of clay to then go ahead and make that anchor look like a mixed shaped petal, to kind of just hide the fact that I added that anchor right there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if you're building a house, right? Instead of you just putting two flat pieces of plywood, like leaning two pieces of plywood onto each other, you would add stakes in the middle, and then a stake connecting the little ones in the middle. I don't know how to build a house. I'm just, you want to add something for it to anchor to. That's all I'm trying to say. If you want them to be, if you want them to have a structure and not feel like it's gonna fall apart on you, you really want to give the petal something to anchor itself onto. That's all I have to say. And then I'm just using my brush with that little extra piece of clay that I add to make it look like a flower petal rather than a glob of clay. Yeah. All right. That's all I gotta say.
Trying to find the reasons you won't find her pretty. 'Cause I am insecure. My looks been needing more. And I try to find the reasons that you would stay with me. 'Cause I am insecure. I'm not an intellectual. Are you just with me? 'Cause you need a body. Am I somebody to you? Can I be somebody you run to? Are you just with me? 'Cause you need a body. Am I somebody to you? Can I be somebody you run to? Wanna be the one you wanted more. Wanna be the one that you adore. Do you see a long road with me? Do you only see me as a body? Trying to make you close the door. Give me everything I'm waiting for. Let me know the things you love about me. Love me like I'm more than just a body. Are you just with me? 'Cause you need a body. Am I somebody to you? Can I be
Okay, not surprisingly at all, my camera died, so I didn't get the footage of me adding the rest of the little petals that covered up those big bulbous pieces of clay that I added on as anchors, but it doesn't really matter. It's practically the same thing that I did with the other petals to hide the bud that I created. So I decided to go in with a bit of the clay, the soft pastel pink, because I like the colors of the petals. So I wanted to add that on the cheeks just to kind of give it more of like to make them look cohesive. Now I'm going in and I am creating the facial features. So this is the D Gel Brown from the D Gel X Jenny collection. Yeah, she's thick. I love her. A beautiful brown, might I add. And I'm just going in and adding the facial features. So instead of going in with like a black, going in with like a nice deep brown. It's really pretty. And it just also creates softness, and it just helps with the idea that he's a gentle king. Like, he is a gentle king and he deserves love. So his flower can blossom. We love gentle kings. And so I'm just going in and adding the facial features. So he doesn't necessarily, like, his eyes aren't open, they're closed. So I'm just creating a line where the indent is to create like a tight line for the eye. I added his mouth. I love cute things with freckles. So I added some freckles on him, and then I also did his eyebrows. And that was pretty much it. He was a simple, precious, ethereal king. That is he. Oh, he's so cute, you guys. He's so cute. I'm going to make him a sister and a little cousin and a best friend. I don't even know what the heck I'm going to do with these. They can't go on nails. They're too... Well, I mean, he could go on a nail. I'll just have to anchor him down. But he's so cute. I think I might just make a little collection of him and his friends. I think that'll be fun. Our little lotus boy and all his friends. So yeah, I'm just... Oh, I took my matte top coat and I am sealing everything in. One thing that I like to do is take a little brush and apply my matte top coat on with that brush, because I won't have to worry about it gopping up and the creases of the petals, which makes it look weird. And I don't also have to worry about it just looking like a hot mess. But that is pretty much the end of the video. I really hope you guys liked it. I really hope I was able to teach you something. And follow me on Instagram, because I promise you, I try to be more active on my Instagram, especially on my stories, not so much of posting on Instagram, but my stories for sure. But I love you guys so much. Remember to create something, whether it's big or small. Just the act and the art of creating is a really beautiful thing. And let me know if you guys try our little Lotus King out. Let me know if you guys do our little Lotus King. And hopefully some of the ideas and the tools that I added in this video can help you create some fun nail art things. I will make sure I list it down in the description box below. Without further ado, I love you. Take care. Follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.